Got a submission here from seafurymike asking about his tune. I get a little feedback just on the tune. You suspect that roll P gain needs to be higher and maybe pitch could go down a little bit. And also we're going to look at this specific part and see what's going on here. Thank you for submitting the all three of the things, the video file, the CLI dump, and the Blackbox log. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to read your CLI dump. I'm not sure why, but it just was a blank, like a blank 4-page document. That's probably user error on my part, but I don't know. It's an RTF instead of a text document, so maybe something got mangled. Anyway, no big deal. We're just gonna go on ahead. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up your gyros and I'm going to zoom all the way out and just take a look at your overall noise level. And your overall noise level looks fine. Your yaw and your pitch traces are very clean, very thin lines here. Your roll trace is a little thicker, so you have more vibration on roll than on yaw or pitch. That doesn't mean anything in and of itself. I mean, one of them's got to be the biggest, but you do have a little more vibration on roll than on yaw or pitch, so fine. But none of them looks particularly noisy. I would say that roll is starting to get, it's not there yet, but it's starting to get to the point where if it were maybe 25% thicker, I would start to say, that's starting to look a little noisy. What's going on there? If all three axes looked like maybe 25%, 35% thicker than this, then I might start wondering if you had a very noisy copter and needed to do something different with your filtering. But for now, looks just fine. Let's take a look at your roll PIDs, and we're going to zoom back in again to 100%. And let's go back to your submission. Roll P needs to be higher, you're wondering, and we're looking at transition in a roll. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I know what you mean here. Do you mean P? Sinus? I'm not sure what you mean. I think we're missing a word here. The transition of what in the roll? What is close to the line? I wonder if it's P. Let's take a look and see if we can come up with anything. You are running, okay, so you're running an older version of Betaflight, so you're not running 2 kilohertz. All these people starting to run 2 kilohertz Betaflight are really going to throw me for a loop because I bet their black boxes are going to look different and I won't have any idea what I'm seeing. So I do immediately see that you've got a lot of sort of high frequency noise in your D term. Yeah. It doesn't look like your D term as a whole is, your D gain as a whole is too high because your D term itself, it doesn't look like its magnitude is excessive. Just like there's high frequency noise in there. It makes me wonder if you've got D term cut hertz turned on or turned off. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, we've gone through many phases of development with Betaflight. And there was a phase of development where we were very focused on making the lines look as smooth as possible. And I would say you needed to filter this some more. And we're currently in a phase of development where, you know, now we've got gyrosync, whereas we didn't used to have gyrosync. So this is a moving target, and we're just striving for better and better flight characteristics. And this is one of the consequences of being on the cutting edge is, you know, things are going to change. The established norms are going to change over time. Now, with the latest beta flights and possibly the one you're on, I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a problem. We found, and by we I mostly mean Boris, who has these ideas. Then he does a bunch of flight testing, and people who I don't know their names also do a bunch of flight testing for him. Lots of people on the Betaflight thread do flight testing, of course. Everybody does flight testing and says, oh, well, this thing is better. And we've come to think, especially now that we have Betaflight V2 with the FIR filter, that it's okay to have a little bit of noise in the D term if you can reduce the filtering and decrease the phase change. So the D term gets less delayed, the less filtering there is, and that maybe a little more noise is okay as long as you have less filtering. All that being said, it feels to me like there's more noise in here than I would expect. especially given you're on an older beta flight from like October. And that I think is before we really started tweaking around with gyrosync and the D term filtering getting reduced. So this does make me wonder what your D term cut hertz is and whether it should be reduced. I don't know. Maybe it should stay the same. Um, I agree with you that your P term does not look hyperactive. Let me just turn your D off real quick and just get that out of there. This is kind of getting in the way. Yeah, I agree that your P does not look super active. I don't see any signs of oscillation during any of this flying. Now here we've got a roll, and we can see a strong push into the move. The P term goes in the same direction as the gyro, and a strong push out of the move at the beginning. That's normal. We see a little bit of back and forth in the middle of the move, and then coming out again. We say that the P term, I've said, I think this is what you were referring to, that the P term is, the sort of perfect flip or roll, has a strong push in, a strong push out, and then the P term is near zero during the whole move. And that's sort of like, it's like a painting that you'd hang on a wall. It's not necessarily a real world thing. So don't let the fact that yours doesn't look like that lead you to think that there's a tuning problem. Flips and rolls are very extreme maneuvers. If we actually look at the video, what do we see? So you do have a bounce at the end, and that jumps out to me more than anything. There was a good strong bounce there at the end, wasn't there? Look at that again. Okay, so I mean that's more indicative of a tuning problem than anything else. We can definitely tune that out. Um, so then what should you do to try to tune that out? Well, since your P term looks pretty docile most of the time, here's the first time the P term starts to get a little out of line. What are you doing there? Let's see. I'll bet it's prop wash. Yeah, prop wash oscillation. You're going through a turn, you're going through your own prop wash. So don't worry about that. That's pretty normal. There are things you can do about that, but that's like the last thing you should be worrying about. When you got a big bounce like that at the end of your roll, that's more of an issue. Yeah, your roll P term looks pretty docile most of the time, so I agree with you that it could be raised. Now, normally when you've got bounce back at the end of a move, you think, oh, I should raise D. But your D magnitude, let's bring D back in here. Your D magnitude doesn't look low. It doesn't look like your D term is too low here. It does look like your P term is low. And that bounce back can be caused by any number of things. If you have an oscillation at the end of a move, it could be a excess P gain. It could be too much or too low D. It's kind of like a three bears thing, right? You could have too much, too little, and if the symptoms can be hard to read. It's only when you're just right that you actually hit the mark. So in this case, it feels like the thing to do is to raise the P turn, P gain, as you suggested. Let's take a look at pitch. We look at pitch. So on pitch, your D term looks pretty small. It feels to me like your D gain on pitch could come up just looking at the traces here. You see how the D trace is like it's barely off the line. It's barely got any magnitude at all. Yeah, it feels like it could come up a little. What's going on here? This is that same prop wash situation. So don't worry about that. That's nothing. And yeah, your P term is not super noisy or super active either. What's going on there? So that was just at the end of your roll. What do we got? We got any P term moves? Any pitch moves? There's that roll. Something going on here? What is it? Nah, just more prop wash. I kind of basically agree looking at this that you could probably bring pitch P up a little as well. I basically agree with that. Yeah, another roll, but not a flip. We got a flip in here. It's kind of a long flight. You have good flight time. Oh, 3:45. It's not that long. Yeah. And then let's just take a quick look at yaw. Yeah, it feels like yaw P could come up as well. Yaw can usually afford to be a little more active than the other two because the authority is lower. So on yaw, I kind of almost want to see a little bit of oscillation on yaw. Nothing you could see in the gyro. If you see it in the gyro or hear it, it's not good. But usually the trace itself can start to get a little on the edge of active without causing issues and sharpen that response up. So yeah, I would probably raise yaw P as well, just based on what I'm seeing here. Um, okay. All right. Well, I hope that was all helpful. Did I get everything that was in your post? I think I did. Hope that was all helpful and happy flying.